I am DJ Lady Jock from Music My Way, and he is G.Wiz from Traveling at the Speed of Sound, and we're on KDHX 88.1, and we have with us today the singer, the British R&B singer that crossed over United States Airways, boom, Junior, and producer Walter. What's going on, people?
We're good.
Junior, so tell us a little bit about yourself, where you was born and raised.
I was born in London. My parents are Jamaican. All of my brothers and sisters, I had eight of us all together. 7 born in Jamaica, me the only English one. Brought up during a time of a lot of racism, a lot of prejudice, a lot of things that would deter you from taking steps to go into music or anything, to be quite honest. You were always not looked upon as being capable. And you know that your life was going to be a 9 to 5, and that was going to be it, and you should be lucky to have a 9 to 5. So my approach was completely different. I didn't want to be told how I should live my life. I wanted to live my life. So I started out working. I went to college, got myself what they call a City and Guilds, which is like a diploma. So I got that. That appeased my parents because they wanted me to have some kind of qualification behind me, right, if I was going to go into music. So I took computers and did computer programming back in the day and got my scholarship through that. Then put bands together. First band I really put together was me and the 12 other guys. We called ourselves the Idelics because everything was X back in the day. So we came out and we would do what we call pub gigs here, which is like, you know, somewhere where you go and drink and whatever else. And we would do those gigs. And then I kind of got fed up of that and decided I wanted to make a different kind of thing. I wanted to make some music that was relative to here in England, but at the same time had that funkiness and had that homegrown Jamaicanness right within it. So I started another band when I was about 17, and this band, we were doing what I termed at the time as a rock funk type thing. We were listening a lot to like Sly, we were listening a lot to the Isley Brothers. We were listening to a lot of things where from Black music that was taking the rock and roll of the time and mixing that with some R&B and making different kinds of sounds and songs. And that was what was inspiring me during my teens. When I got to 19, I made a record called Get Up and Dance, Hot Up and Heated. It came out in America, started bubbling in the Hot 100 on Billboard, and through a company called Firesign. And that record was the beginning of the whole thing. It went to France, it became a #1 in France. We took it off the market in America, came back to England, decided that what I would do is go back in and make a record for a new record company. At the time, I'd just been signed to Polygram. And we decided that I'd written 2 songs, Mama Used to Say, and another song called In Words. The record company wanted Mama Used to Say, I wanted In Words, so we clashed. It was a good clash. And, you know, thankfully, we recorded Mama Used to Say. We put Mama Used to Say out. In England, it didn't do as well as in America. And because of its success in America, it came back to England, and the whole thing just started to blow up. So the England thing started to blow up, the American thing started to blow up, France, Germany, and the record just took off. And that was really the beginning of Junior.
Wow, that was a lot of good information there. So any of your siblings, you say it was 8 of you,
Yeah.
Were you the only singer, or who started you singing, or how did you, you know, just?
My mother was a soprano, and she used to sing around the house, and she had an incredible voice. My 2 older brothers put a band together. So when my brothers are like 13, 14 years older than me, so they're much older than I was. But what was happening was they would have 2 friends that came around and they would make music. So I started to watch how they would put their vocals together, the kind of bands that they like to listen to, like the Moonglows and people like that, right? Real close harmony type things. And they had a reel-to-reel, so I watched how you could edit and stuff like this. And I was around about, what, 10, 11 at the time. But I think those 3 people were the most important and most influential during the time before I became a teenager, sorry. They were the most influential because my brothers would buy the music, my sisters would send music over from Jamaica and also from America. So I was getting that, and then my mum and dad, my mum was into gospel, my dad was into jazz. So there was all of this music, and then there was pop music coming through as well. And I started to understand how to construct, right, pretty early in my, I would say before I turned a teenager, I was able to construct songs. And that was also very inspiring, to be able to know that you can construct them in where your chorus wanted to be and whatever else. And that was really watching and looking at other writers, Von Bell, Linda Creed, people like that, who were writing fantastic songs for the stylistics and people like that at the time, you know. So all of that was inspiring me, was pushing me, was like, I don't know, how would I put it? I would say that it was like food for the hungry, you know. I was just hungry, and there was just so much food, and I kind of like overdid it with the food in having the music, but I loved it. And it was that really drove me into this.
This group, so you was background group for the group, was it the Links?
Yeah.
So did they ever come across United States, or it just stayed?
No, they were the first group in England, really, like black group in England, to have major crossover, if you like, commercial success. And again, being a part of that group and knowing that what we were doing, we were playing like matinees, and we do matinees during the day, and then we do gigs during the night. We were doing that around the country. When we had finished, we turned out to be the biggest band in the country at the time. So Links was huge. We were just a huge band of musicians and writers who came together and wanted to make a form of British music that American people and other people around the world would take to their hearts and take on board. And for 2 albums, we did that and became very successful. Would Throw Away the Key. What was the other one? You're Lying. So This Is Romance. We were having hit after hit. So after 3 years, I think, of really dealing with Links, I had made Mama Used to Say while we were touring. And when Mama came out and started to go up the charts, it was like we were on the road, and we had to make an album. So we had 3 weeks after finishing the tour to record the album. So that first album was recorded within 3 weeks, produced and everything and done. And that was, again, another great experience because we were on the road, so we could write the songs and then rehearse the songs before going in with the band. So as soon as we went in the studio, we weren't wasting any time. We knew exactly what we needed to do and to help, i.e. create on top of what we had started to create.
Have you been over here? You performed over here?
Yeah. I've been over a few times. Back in the 80s, I was over pretty much. I was over a hell of a lot during the 80s. In the 90s, that kind of tailed off slightly. Went back in the 2000s. I produced an album on a young man called Richard Blackwood that done very well in the UK. So I came over to America then and spent some more time. I'd like to come back to America and play some gigs. That's what would be really nice. It's great doing what I do in France, Germany, and all over Europe, which is great. But America has always been that market that has always said, we love you, Junior, you know, regardless. And that's always been a big thing for me, always.
So you say it took about 10 minutes to write that song? Yeah.
I was working in the shop. This young lady came into the shop. I must have been, let me think, I would have been around about 22 and 22, 23. And she walked into the shop and she was stunning. So we started talking and I asked her age and she said that she was 18. And I couldn't believe it. I thought to myself, if I tell her that I'm 23, it's gonna look like I'm too old. So I dropped my age down to 20 and I took her out for dinner that night. So it worked for me.
Oh, so that's what Mama used to say was about, huh?
Yeah, that's what she, you know, Mama
That's cute.
said, don't you rush to get old. I've been rushing to get old, and here I
That's
was
cute.
now.
I like that. That's cute. I really love the meanings behind these songs from people we have
Definitely.
interviewed, and they tell us the meaning. It's like hilarious.
Oh yeah, yeah. Because everybody when they ask that question, like, what was that? How did you do that? And I just said, all it was this situation made me have to laugh. And when I remember going home and saying to my mum, imagine I met this girl and she's 18 and I had to tell her that I'm 20. I said I had to tell her that I'm 20. So my mum said, you lied? She didn't care about anybody. It was the lie. You lied to the girl? How is this going to work? I was like, Mommy, please.
There's interesting because there's the same scenario that you have as what I was saying yesterday on my show about Lamont Dozier. He said that he used to go in restaurants, and if he's in there eating, he would eavesdrop on
Conversations. I do that all the time. It's terrible, but I
and get ideas. Yeah.
Yeah.
It makes hits.
You know what it is? Is that you because you want to touch people with your work. So instead of you fantasizing it or imagining it, right? You take a real scenario, you're listening to people, and this is something real to someone, and then you try and figure out, how can I put that into a song context, right? So that people will sing the chorus, listen to the words, hear the movement of the music, and that also makes it exciting too. Good conversation. Right, my wife is always telling me to stop eavesdropping, but I can't help it, man.
How do you feel about hip hop music? Because I know a lot of people sampled your music, Positive K, Heavy D, Jungle Brothers.
Right.
And I know you get checks for that, but how do you really feel about that?
How I feel about it, I'll be honest with you, right? When I was beginning in the early days, Teddy Riley used to work in England during that time. He must have been in his teens, and he was developing hip hop, his style of hip hop. So I always loved hip hop. When Run DMC, the Beastie Boys, who was the other one? There was another two bands that came over. LL Cool J was one, and the other one was, I can't remember now, the lead singer used to wear like a Western hat type thing, a leather hat. But when I saw, there you go, Houdini, that's it, Houdini. And when I saw them, and I saw that performance they did in London, and I for the first time to see hip hop acts all together like that and performing in the way that they did, I loved it, man, and still do. There's obviously you've got negativity running through a lot of music today, and we know that, but we can't take away from the positive that the music has been giving us. And I can't knock hip hop. Hip hop is just another movement forward in music's development and in Black music's development, and we should pretty much take that on board in the same way during the period of time that we came around and was doing, like Mama used to say, in England, you had a band called Imagination, and they would be doing It's Just an Illusion, Body Talk, and all that kind of stuff. We were just a bunch of kids who wanted to express ourselves away from the norm narrative that you would never be able to make it. We wanted to prove to others that it was possible. We wanted to prove to others that our music could be accessible worldwide. Because even though Lynx and being a part of Lynx had started something, the industry itself in the UK was still holding back the music from actually busting open. So they did the same thing with hip hop and tried to hold it down, hold it down, hold it down. But hip hop as a musical force was just too strong. So it would be like, no, I'm not going to get involved in hip hop. I don't want anything to do with hip hop, to the point whereby, regardless of whether or not you want anything to do with it, if you're in this industry, you're going to be a part of it, because it will now become the dominant force of music worldwide, which it did become. So no, I don't feel any way about it. I just think it's like young kids taking on something and trying to express it in a different way. right? And I actually encourage that, to be quite honest.
I second that emotion.
I third. He fought, Walt fought. Mr.
Cool.
Walt, tell us
Yes.
a little bit about yourself.
I came here from Des Moines, Iowa in 1987. So I was working a job in a foundry. One day I just went in and I was like, you know what? I got to do what I love to do. And I got to get closer to it. Minneapolis is popping. Prince is really kicking off there. The time, all of that was going on. And I had made a trip up here and I met Jelly Bean Johnson, who I'm really good friends with from the time. Me and him are really good friends. He's a dear friend. And I met him for the first time. I said, man, this cat is a really nice dude. He said, man, yeah, you should move up here. There's more music up here, man. You get in where you fit in. So I moved up. And then, of course, playing saxophone, that's my main instrument. And so I brought my horn up here and played in different bands and different groups and so forth, so forth. So it ended up through Kirk Johnson, who was Prince's drummer and best man in his wedding when Prince got married. He introduced me to Prince. And from there, we became acquainted. I was in a band. We were the house band at Prince's Club at Glam Slam. And we had a group called TKO, and if you look up on YouTube, you can see TKO live at Glam Slam. It was way back in 92, 93. Then from there, I became a little bit closer to Prince, played in other bands. And then I was called to play out on the Emancipation record. And I'm on Jam of the Year. I'm that first song of that record. And I'm also on the 6th song of the 3rd disc, Style. I played sax on that. So then that's when I started recording with Prince and started having more of an intimate relationship with him. And we're, just working together. Then after a while, I put a band together called Conversation. And by the way, that record went double platinum. So I got a double platinum record from being on that record. And a lot of my other colleagues made the record who were in the band TKO because he used some of those other singers. He used a couple of other players in the band to be on that record. There's a good guy of people on that record. But anyway, moving forward, put a band together called Conversation Piece. And it's probably one of the funkiest bands up here in Minneapolis. Prince would bring people like Larry Graham. He would bring like Candy Dulfer. He brought Maceo Parker down one night and we had a big jam session. Prince was on stage, all of them. So that's probably one of my highlight moments. And then, Prince produced Chaka Khan's record, Come to My House. So I got to record on the song called Reconsider. So he called me out to do that. And those are some of the highlights. And of course, my latest and greatest highlight is working with Junior,
I was going to ask a question just concerning Jelly Bean, just going off the subject a minute. Is the Time still together?
Oh yeah, they're still together.
Well,
they're still touring. Jelly Bean and those guys and Morris and them, they tour everywhere actually, and being friends with him, I always see different posts where he's here, he's there, and kind of like everywhere.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're still together. But here's the other thing. Jelly Bean and Morris are the only original members in the band now.
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Monty Moore was the last that left. He was the keyboardist, soul brother number one.
He's a great guy.
Yeah, and Junior knows knows him as well. And I worked with him. I taught at a recording school for 18 years, a school here called Institute of Production and Recording. And Monty also taught there for a spell. Yep.
Oh, okay.
He taught there probably for about 3-4 years. Yep.
Right.
But that's all that's left of the band. Back to that.
Right.
Jelly Bean and Morris Day.
And Morris. And that's it.
Yep. Jimmy Terry's gone, of course.
Yeah.
Jesse Johnson's gone.
Gone. Yeah.
I need keys, please. And also, let's see, who else was in that band? Was in it? Oh, Jerome is gone now.
Jerome. Yeah.
Jerome is gone. And, he does his thing. He moves around. And of course, that's Terry Lewis's brother.
Yep.
So,
Right.
yeah. So, they're I'm sure they're still connected as family and business and otherwise, but it's not really out in the public as how they're going about things these days. So, because here's somebody here that can tell you a lot of things about Prince. you know, story-wise and otherwise. You know, Prince, 2 years before he passed away, he had me come out to the studio, and it was just software-based stuff that I did because he knew I taught, you know, in the school. So I went out to do some software stuff. We played ping pong and had a few laughs and things like that. And then 2 years later, that's when he passed away.
Did
So
y'all
that was
shoot
the
some
last
hoops? Y'all shoot some hoops?
No,
Y'all
I'm
shoot
scared
some
to play.
hoops?
The way he beat me in ping pong, I was like, I'm not playing nothing else with him.
Try him again.
Just music. We're gonna stick to the music. I'll play that with you. Because he skunked me. We played 3 games. He skunked me 3 times. 3 out of 3. He didn't even do the 2 out of 3. He said, I'm gonna give you a chance and the way he talked in my Prince voice, you know, Walter, I'm gonna let you play one more game with me, give you a chance to win. I was like, okay, cool. So I played him, got beat again. So, you know, but he's, you know, that's, I gotta just say for myself, that was the last time I saw Prince was then in person. Right. And after that, he passed away. And I'm keeping it sacred for myself not to go to Paisley Park at all, because he was the one. Usually when you go to Paisley Park, Prince call you out. You go to the door, somebody answers the door for him. Okay, come on in, you can wait in here, he'll be out in a second, whatever. I went out, he came right straight to the door and put his hand out and said, Walter, thank you for coming out. And shook my hand, and I went in, and I gotta keep that sacred, you know. Yeah. I gotta keep that sacred because it's different there now. And I don't, you know, I have no complaints about it, but I'm saying for me, you know, people feel what they feel. They have certain things that are sacred to them, you know, spiritually, musically, and otherwise. So that's just something sacred to me. So I can't go back out there. You know, I just can't.
Sir, but real quick before we let you go, I don't know if Wiz want to ask you, but we just want to know the collaboration with you and Junior with this new song, Schoolin' You.
Well, I was in the alley one day and I found out where Junior lived, so I knocked on his back door, and he fed me for 2 weeks, and we became acquainted, and here we are. So, you know, we are. I was kind of like an alley cat kind of thing, you know, somebody just hanging out. But no, my management, Aaron Casserly Stewart, and also Diane Dunkley, they're started managing me like a year ago. And, you know, I do like smooth jazz. I do smooth jazz things. And they were managing me from that standpoint. And, you know, it went okay. It's not that big over in the UK, but over here, I did pretty well, you know, with some of my songs, with that genre. And then they said, hey, you know, you have anything that's funky? And I said, yeah, sure, you know. So I pitched the song out, and there was somebody else they pitched it to before they pitched it to Junior. And he was like, I don't have time to record that. I'm doing some other things. So then they let Junior listen to it, and Junior was like, Walter, we got to work together, you know, hearing the song. So I was like, cool. And I sent the song to Junior. Junior had lyrics for it in the first week, just like that whole 10-minute stint. He's like a minute man. He's a minute man. He's a minute man. You could give him like a 20-minute song. He'll have lyrics for it in 5 minutes. You know what I'm saying? You know, and Junior was just like that, and that's how we became acquainted.
That's true.
I'm hearing Prince, Parliament, Zap, Cameo, all mashed up together in Who's Schoolin' You, and it blew my mind. I'm like, that's who? I don't know what Mama said, but whatever Mama said, you obeyed. Because that, I was like, I wanted to put my skates on. I was like, T, you got to give me that one. You got to give me that one because I'm rocking that.
Richard,
just giving you a little insight on where that song originated. There was just something I wanted to put together. I said, you know, I've never did like a Minneapolis sound kind of song. So I said I want to do that, but let me mix it in with some Roger, of course, Parliaments, and so forth, so forth. This is stuff I grew up listening to, you know, back when I was like, you know, my early 20s, you know, 18, 19, being introduced to people like Pleasure, you know, and by the way, I got Marlon McLean on that from Pleasure, playing guitar on this track. Yeah, he's on that too.
Right.
Okay.
Marlon the Magician. Yeah.
Wow.
So, you know, the
I
song
knew it.
set around since about, I'd say 2016. And it has a timeless sound. I said, I'm going to use this to somebody. I don't know who I'm going to give it to. It could be Snoop. You know, it'd be great if that happens. And then it popped on Junior's lap. And I was like, yes, it's landed in the right place. And he, you know, he threw down on it. So there we go.
Well, I'm as Junior, how is the song being received in the US versus in England?
In England, it's actually being received better than I thought it would be. And the reason I say better, because of the fact that like that kind of funk isn't played as much here anymore. People don't play Cameo like they used to. They don't play P-Funk. They don't play, you know, Prince's funkier side. That whole thing, for me, when Walter sent me the backing track, what I heard was everything that I loved about funk. It was everything: the guitar lick, the way that the keyboards work against the guitar, the space within the track, the fun of the track. It was everything as a kid that I loved about funky music. And so I wanted to make a record that would say, in a sense, it's like an appreciation to all of those that went before, for me personally, right? Thank you for this. You know what I'm saying? If it wasn't for you, this would never have occurred. I don't think the sound, the way, the approach, if it wasn't for all of those that went before. So for me, it was like an appreciation song. Let me do something that's in the style of, right? And let me put something on top that shows a different kind of Junior vocal style, something slightly different, something that would be fun, that my grandkids would be ringing me up and saying that they heard on the radio, and that kind of thing, you know, where they went out and they heard the record playing. My oldest grandson's 23 and he went out somewhere last week and heard the record, and he rang me up and he said to me, like, I heard this track, you know, who's been schooling you? And like, yeah. Is that you? I'm like, yeah. Oh my gosh, I was telling my friend, you get what I'm saying? It was like, it was lovely just to hear a young man turn around and listen to that music. He's not heard it before, or if he has heard it within the house, me playing it or whatever, he's just gone past it because it's not within his generation. So to have done that record and having him call me up on the phone and tell me that him and his friends went out and how much he loves the track was kind of like telling me that I think we have something pretty special here. You know, I think we created something very special, and I hope a lot of people get the chance to hear it.
Well, it hasn't really blown up here in the States quite yet, because the States is a little bit different as it relates to release and organics and how that works with radio and DJ. So we're still upon the release, correct, Junior? We're still upon when you want to actually release it and have it on Spotify and so forth. Yeah.
Well, you can count on us too, because it's our playlist. We airing it. We're gonna get it out here in St. Louis. That's what.
Thank you very much.
That's what we do. Me and Big Brother. That's what we do.
That's real cool.
But it's a pleasure meeting you, Tamika, Lady J, Jock, and G.Wiz. Thank you so much for having me on. And Junior, good to see you again, brother.
You too, brother. We'll see one
don't,
another.
Don't make yourself scarce, man. Okay.
You know that won't happen.
All right, y'all. Have a beautiful day.
You do
Thank
as
you,
well.
Walt. You too.
Thank you.
And love y'all and take care.
Thank you. So yeah, Junior, when is an album coming out?
Well, I'm basically spending this month trying to put it all together, to be honest with you. I would say that the album will most probably drop towards the back end of the year somewhere, hopefully November, December time. If not, it will be early, it'll be January. I should have everything done. So, but I'm just very, very pleased at the minute, because it's like the reaction, as I said, to the song has been really, really good. And it keeps getting better as more people hear it. So I want to come out on tour. I'm not really, I love the record and everything, but I want to play live. So I'm hoping that the next step for me is to come into America and play live.
So, Junior, you
No.
have a social media, anything anybody can contact
Yeah,
you
you
or
can,
reach
you
out?
know, I have my own website, so it's juniorgiscombe.co.uk. You can get me on Facebook. You can hit me up on Instagram, right? I'm not great with Twitter. I kind of, but a lot of social media things, I try not to get too involved in. I watch a lot, but I don't really get too much involved in. I like to learn other than opposed to pushing out stuff all the time. You know, I spend more time trying to make music.
Now,
Doing some work.
you mentioned earlier about your roots, you know, and
Yeah.
everything, and your parents, and the racism over there. I'm pretty sure you're familiar with that series, Small Acts. Have you
Yeah.
heard that? I looked
Yes.
at some of that, and I was like, wow, that's pretty much how America is and how America was with hip hop music.
Right.
It was
Same thing
the
with reggae
same
music.
dynamic. I'm like,
Yeah.
wow, they shutting things down just because you playing it, don't want you
Yeah.
to play it.
That's
Yeah,
right.
that was back in those early days. It's like
Yeah.
you couldn't play that music.
No.
And
Nobody
that
wanted
was,
to hear. Nobody wanted to hear that music, right?
yeah.
In terms of the establishment, we would have radio stations in England during that period of time that were playing that music, and they would send people out to shut them down, right? Yeah, send out police and whoever else that they needed to send out to shut those stations down. They didn't want that music being played. And then they conned the whole of that industry by telling them that, like, if they come on board, i.e. if you come and you become legal, we will give you the license that you need at a cheaper rate. And they did that maybe for the first 6 months, as they always do, and then they upped the rates, knowing that the guys couldn't pay. So it pushed it all back underground for a few more years. So they knew exactly what they were doing during a period of time. It was all to do with the fact that they didn't want this young generation of black and white kids, right? One mixing together. There you go. One mixing together. Two, right? They didn't like the fact that, like, the influences was coming more from a black perspective than it was from a white perspective, which meant that the thing was being colored and it was changing, and they didn't like the change. They wanted their own. It's like 40 years on, you have Ed Sheeran and you have Adele being like your top two supposedly R&B singers. That's been worked on for over 40 years. So now they've got it. Now they can turn and say, this is R&B, this is dance music.
Yeah.
Because these people, it's like when people, you know, and it's no disrespect to him either, when people talk about Eminem, when people talk about Elvis, it's always in the same way, right? These guys have come along, they've taken and listened and want to express themselves through it, and then all of a sudden they become it. So, you know, Eminem, the greatest rapper ever lived. I mean, like, I'm not saying that he can't rap, and I'm not saying he can't write, which he can. And I give him props on both of them. But don't come with that. That's not fair. You know, I couldn't walk into a pop scenario and become, right, the number one pop artist. That would never happen. Not in this country. That could never happen, right? Because it's all about slotting you in to where you fit now, right? So if you're on a big scale, then let's say Stormzy or one of those that we have within England, they will come out, they will have the record, they will have the success, but then it's owned, it's managed, it's moved. It then doesn't go to the areas that it came out of. So you now are pushing, because of the commercial success, you're pushing it into that commercial market, forgetting the market that started it. The market that started it wasn't commercial marketplace. It was the street marketplace. It was the kids on the street. It was where they were coming from. That's where you were speaking from. So to then have success and not still be able to transmit your feelings, your thoughts, what's going on within areas back to your people, then what you're doing is you're cutting off and stifling, right, that music form becoming even bigger. Because what you're saying is, well, you're in a commercial marketplace now, so we can make it even bigger. The commercial marketplace is short-lived. So unless you keep your fan base, unless the people that started you are prepared to continue to go back to, right, and make sure of that, then you're doomed. You're doomed, basically. Your success will only be short-lived because you forsake those. It's like anything. Why am I going to forsake those that put me there for those that are coming for me? What's that all about? If it wasn't for America in the first instance, taking Mama Used to Say on board, making Mama Used to Say the classic that it's become today. If it wasn't for America, Britain wasn't going to play me. It was the success in America that they couldn't turn around and say, oh no, we're not going to play. They had to. Mm-hmm. So when the record first came out and they didn't play it and it didn't succeed, it went to America, it became a huge hit. And they came back, all the DJs turned around, oh, I love that song. I loved it the very first time, but nobody played it. It was classic stuff, but nobody played it. Oh, it needed to go to America to have a remix for it to be, and so you're like, well, hold on. The Americans were playing it when it was rock and roll, big ambient sounding things that I wanted to do at that time. It was still getting played. So it was you who didn't want to play it. You didn't hear it. You didn't see it. But its success took all of them by surprise. And it was one of the best things that ever happened to me, coming back to England after Mama Used to Say had become that big. And knowing that these people had to pay homage to this music form that they didn't want, that they tried desperately not to make a hit record. And that was when I started to realize the power of music, right? The power of people who just love music and wanted to share that by playing it. And that's what was happening after Frankie Crocker played it in New York. I'm going to tell you something. When I was in England, when Bobby Brown was going to come out with his album, Don't Be Cruel, My Prerogative, and everything like that, there was a huge meeting at the record company that he was signed to at the time. And I was fortunate enough to be there. And one of their problems with marketing Bobby Brown was the fact that he was a dark-skinned black man. They turned and made it quite clear that was they had huge problems with trying to sell Bobby Brown because of his color and because he was a dark-skinned. What would I call it? Their approach to it was, if he was fair-skinned like Bob Marley, then it would be easier. That's in the UK. That's with the Bobby Brown album that went down, right? That, My Prerogative, right? Don't Be Cruel, right? All of these songs, right? You couldn't hear it. You saw color. You didn't see the music. You couldn't hear the music. All you saw was color. So I'm sitting there in a meeting with these Caucasian men and women, and I get up from the table and I say to them, like, well, obviously you must see me as a coconut then. And everybody stops talking. Everybody stops talking. And I said, well, Bobby Brown ain't too far off in color to me. So how do you see me to market me? Oh, well, it's not like that with you. How is it then with me? We're the same color. Right? So you're not really pushing my records then, or you don't really want to push my records, do you? You read these stories of great artists and they end up dying and somebody else has to pay for their funeral and stuff like this. And they've had mountains of hit records and are supposedly multi-millionaires and whatever else. But the real is, unless they go out and play live, they're not eating. They are not eating.
Literally.
Yes,
literally not eating.
They're not eating because their money, they're not making money off of the records being played on radio. Whoever's the writers are making it, the publishers are making it, right? So you could have a very successful record with a band and the band has to play live to be able to make some money. If he's waiting on anything to come from the record, he might as well stay there and wait, because everything that's spent, right, that the record company spent is your money. And they're taking it back from you at a percentage rate whereby you can't make no money, right? You know, it's like you have to sell 1 million records, right, to make some money. Not many artists sell 1 million records. You guys are great.
Oh, you're great. It's been a pleasure.
Oh, yes.
It's been an absolute pleasure talking to the both of you, man.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for having me on. Seriously. Listen, I'm going to love you guys and leave you guys, but thank you so much for this.
Okay.
Thanks for your support.
Thank you, man. Enjoy your day. Oh, night.
Bless me.
Peace.
See ya. Peace.
Take care.
Senior or junior, whichever one you want to be now.
I love it. Come with it. Come with it.
The senior.
I want